Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we sift through fascinating source materials to give you the core insights, the really interesting bits.
And today we're looking at possibly the shortest session dictation we've ever covered. But oh boy, does it pack a punch in terms of weirdness and honestly profound stuff too.
It really does. It's a peek behind the curtain when things aren't quite optimal, It shows the human side, the practical side of this kind of, well, advanced psychic exploration.
We're diving into session 53 of the early sessions, book 2 of the Seth material. This one was recorded specifically on Wednesday, May 13th, 1964.
And the context is key here. Like you said, super short session, barely 16 minutes of actual Seth dictation. Why? Because the medium, Ruburt, that's Jane Roberts, wasn't feeling well. She was recovering from a neck issue.
Yeah, she was physically limited, and that immediately changes the dynamic. It gives the whole session this uniquely caring, almost protective vibe, even from Seth.
Definitely. Plus, the setting adds to it. It was apparently raining heavily, no witnesses were present, just Jane and Robert Butts. It emphasizes how intimate this work could be.
Absolutely. Seth really steps into that protective role, making sure Jane's okay, prioritizing her trust over, delivering the next big universal law. It says a lot about the relationship needed for this kind of channeling.
So before we get into the really wild stuff, the talking lips, the dog swarm, the sofa saga, we need to do our standard bits.
Right. So just to be clear for everyone listening, this deep dive, like all our deep dives, is distributed completely free of charge across all major platforms. It's purely for educational discussion.
And we absolutely must credit our source, the Seth material, which is published by the New Awareness Network. We can't stress enough how valuable the original books are.
We really encourage you, if this sparks your interest, to explore the material yourself. Go deeper. Check out the New Awareness Network website and bookstore. That's at sethcenter.com/really sessions. You can find the full sessions there.
Okay, so our mission today, we're going to unpack the incredibly specific, sometimes hilarious, often just plain strange psychic phenomena recorded around this very brief session.
And we'll explore how the utterly mundane, like everyday life stuff, family problems, moving furniture gets tangled up with these really deep metaphysical insights. It's all connected.
Let's kick off with Robert Butt's own experiments, the stuff he was doing before and after the main Seth dictation. The level of detail is amazing.
Right. So Robert wasn't just passively waiting for the session to start. He was actively working, doing his own thing with what he called psychological time.
Can you give us a quick refresher on what that actually involved? It wasn't just daydreaming, was it?
No, not at all. It was a conscious, deliberate effort. He'd give himself suggestions to shift his focus away from ordinary physical reality. The idea was to tune into his inner senses.
Inner senses. So like perceiving things that aren't physically there, colors, images, sounds.
Exactly. Vision, sounds, feelings, surges of energy. And crucially, the goal wasn't just to have the experience, but to bring the details back, consciously, into his rational mind.
And then write it all down. Meticulously.
Yes, rigorous cataloging. And Seth actually comments on this, praises the detailed record-keeping in earlier sessions. Seth points out that Robert and Jane, using their individual inner senses, might perceive different facets of the same non-physical event.
So comparing notes could lead to greater knowledge, as Seth put it, like getting two different camera angles on something.
Precisely. It adds depth, corroboration. And Robert's notes are so specific. Texture, color, position in his field of vision, the feeling it evoked, even when the image itself seems completely random.
Which brings us to the pre-session sightings he recorded. On Monday, May 11th, he notes seeing various things, but two stand out. First, a symbol drawn in wet, dark sand right at the water's edge.
Water's edge. Often seen as that boundary, right, between the conscious and unconscious.
Could be. And then, also at the water's edge, he sees two men. Key detail. Deeply tanned and wearing bathing suits.
Okay, the bathing suits. Why? Why tanned? It's these oddly specific, mundane details attached to a potentially symbolic image that make it so compelling, isn't it?
It really is. Are they just random bits of psychic flotsam, or do they signify something?
Yeah.
Health, exposure, figures emerging from his own psyche.
Could be symbolic. Or maybe it's a glimpse of an actual beach scene somewhere, sometime. The sheer normalcy of tan guys in bathing suits points that way. But the context, his psychological time state, pushes you towards symbolism.
Then, the next day, Tuesday, May 12th, the imagery shifts again. He sees a young woman, very clear, full figure, sitting on a straight chair, facing him.
And the details here are hyper-realistic, almost photographic. He notes she's smiling, legs crossed, wearing a brown sweater and skirt, dark long hair.
It sounds like just looking at someone, you know? Like maybe he accidentally tuned into a real person somewhere.
That's the feeling, isn't it? The specificity brown sweater, legs crossed, suggests a concrete, singular event or person. It shows how focused his inner perception could be.
But then that clarity gets completely sideswiped by the next vision, also on May 12th. This one is genuinely bizarre, the swarm of dogs.
Oh, yes, the dogs.
Well,
So he sees this pack of dogs in the lower center of his vision. Various breeds, various sizes. He even specifically identifies a Dalmatian.
okay, a Dalmatian, again with the specific real-world detail, makes it feel grounded.
But then comes the twist. He says they were swarming about, sort of chaotically. Yet they were all seemingly linked to one master leash.
And the kicker.
No human figure was visible holding the leash, just dogs swarming, attached to an invisible central point held by nothing.
That's unsettling. It's got that dreamlike quality, hasn't it? Part real, part completely impossible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? Is it symbolic?
Yeah.
You know, the dogs representing primal urges, instinctual energies, all somehow controlled by an unseen force,
Yeah.
his own subconscious maybe, or
Yeah.
Seth.
Or, playing devil's advocate, is it another glimpse into a slightly off reality? Maybe there was a dog walker, but they were just out of phase or moving too fast for his perception to fully capture. The Dalmatian detail pulls you that way.
But the single leash for a whole swarm, that pushes back hard towards symbolism. It's that tension again, isn't it? The material constantly asks you to hold both possibilities, the literal glimpse and the symbolic meaning. Ruburt's detailed notes force you to confront that ambiguity.
Yeah, reality isn't simple in these sessions. It's chaos and control, seen and unseen, all tangled up.
Okay, so if those pre-session visions were setting a strange tone, what happened after the short session 53 dictation? Well, Ruburt immediately tried his psychological time experiments again.
Right, straight back to it. And this time the experience was, well, intense seems like an understatement. It started physically, didn't it?
Yes. He reported that as soon as he gave himself the usual suggestions, he felt a definite and rather surprising surge of lightness, a feeling of rising up through his body.
Like an energy shift, losing density almost.
That's how it sounds. Like his whole system was preparing for something non-physical, getting ready to perceive differently.
And perceived differently he did, because what came next is, wow, straight out of surrealism. He saw clearly a pair of lips.
Not just any lips. He described them as open, full-lipped, sensuous, red, and definitely feminine, floating in his upper field of vision.
Hey, just floating lips. That's already pretty weird. But then there's the tongue.
Ah, the tongue. He saw a triangular kind of tongue moving between the lips. But here's the fascinating part. His immediate thought, his interpretation, was that it was a cardboard tongue.
Cardboard. So you have these sensuous, very alive-looking lips, but the tongue is flat, artificial, lifeless. What is that about?
It's a fantastic detail for interpretation, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have this possibly primal, raw, feminine communication symbol, the sensuous mouth. But the intellect, Robert's mind, immediately imposes this neutralizing image onto the tongue. Cardboard. It's like trying to contain or rationalize the raw sensuality, the potential emotional power of the image.
Making it safer, maybe? Less overwhelming?
Perhaps. Or just processing it through his existing mental filters, the intellect trying to make sense of something deeply non-intellectual.
And then the mouth spoke, which just adds another layer. What did it say?
It apparently spoke the words, "Oh, now please bear with me," or something very close to that effect, a plea for patience.
Huh. Bear with me. Given everything else going on Jane's illness, Robert's own admitted stress about work and family stuff he was thinking about just before this, who's talking to whom?
Great question. Is it a part of Robert's own psyche saying, hey, slow down, focus? Is it some other entity trying to communicate, maybe related to Jane's channeling ability, but finding Robert's mind a bit distracted?
Or maybe it's just a fragment, you know? Like tuning into a snippet of some other conversation happening elsewhere.
Could be. But the theme of patience fits so well with the whole session. Seth is being patient with Jane's recovery. Ruburt needs patience with his family issues. Maybe the universe, or whatever this mouth represented, was also asking for patience from him.
And the experience was totally immersive for him, right? He said he wasn't even aware of his body.
Yeah, for the first time during these experiments, he noted a complete loss of bodily sensation while the vision lasted. Total focus shift.
And then came the aftermath. As the mouth vanished, what happened?
He was hit head to toe by what he called his familiar thrilling, the feeling of sound. He described it as very strong and suffusing, almost one of ecstasy.
Ecstasy, wow. Not just a visual thing then, but a full-body energetic experience.
Absolutely, a profound surge. He felt like he was about to be swept up and away, and he even realized consciously that he was smiling during it. It lasted strongly for a minute or two, this feeling of being permeated by energy.
That sounds amazing, actually, but also potentially overwhelming.
Exactly, and that led directly to a conversation about caution. The next day, May 14th, Jane tried psychological time herself and also experienced this ecstatic feeling. It lasted over half an hour for her. She felt very light and willing to go along with whatever might develop.
Ugh. So they both hit this intense, ecstatic state, and that made them pause.
It did. They discussed it and agreed that maybe being too willing, too open to just go along with whatever might develop could be risky. Total surrender, even to bliss, might bypass necessary safeguards.
Right, like don't just jump into the deep end without checking the water temperature, even if the water looks amazing.
Pretty much. They decided a more measured approach was needed. Small steps were sufficient. It raises that crucial point about this kind of work.
Yeah.
How do you pursue these incredible inner experiences while staying grounded and safe physically and mentally?
Protect the instrument, basically. Protect the medium, protect the experimenter. Paced progress over sudden immersion.
And that theme of protecting the instrument brings us neatly back to the actual Seth dictation from session 53. Short as it was, Seth packed in some really key messages about, well, maintenance and reassurance.
Yeah, he was clearly very focused on Jane's, Rubert's, well-being. He starts by saying her condition is improving, the rest is good for her.
And he explicitly states the purpose of even having this short session. It was crucial, he says, so that you both know that despite unfortunate circumstances, contact between us is being maintained.
It's about continuity then, keeping the channel open, even if it's just a trickle. Reassurance.
Exactly. And more than that, it's about trust. Seth goes on to say something really important about his relationship with Ruburt. He says, I do not want to cause Ruburt any discomfort. His trust is necessary.
And I do not want him to feel that he is being used by me.
Wow.
Right.
He continues, I know he does not feel this way, nor do I so use him in that manner. Nevertheless, I also avoid the impression of so doing.
That's huge. He's not just concerned about the reality, but also the perception. He's actively managing the relationship to ensure Jane feels safe and respected, not exploited. That feels like a really ethical stance for a channeled entity, doesn't it?
It's fundamental. It sets a standard. The integrity of the connection, the well-being of the medium comes first.
Yeah.
Even before delivering, cosmic truths.
Speaking of cosmic truths, he does mention the big stuff they were meant to be discussing, those principal laws of the universe they've been working on.
Yes, but he postpones them. He acknowledges there's much more to say, but then delivers that wonderful line, the laws will wait. They are not going anyplace.
I love that. It's so humanizing in a weird way. Like, even the fundamental operating system of reality can take a sick day. The universe isn't going to fall apart because Jane has a sore neck.
It really grounds the whole thing, doesn't it? Flexibility, responsiveness to the immediate human need.
And then, bam, right after universal laws, the focus snaps back to the intensely personal Robert's life. The notes say his own parental problem has again suffered an explosion of sorts.
Yeah, the integration is seamless, isn't it? Cosmic principles, family drama, all in the same breath. And Seth's advice for Robert's problem.
Classic Seth, really. Go back and reread the material they already covered on that specific issue. No magic wand, just apply the knowledge you have.
And he adds that the situation requires a fine and subtle balance of reactions. Remember that phrase.
Okay. Fine and subtle balance of reactions. Got it. So, the answer to life's big crises often isn't some brand new revelation, but actually using what you've already learned carefully and consciously.
Precisely. Integration and application, not just constant novelty.
Before wrapping up the short session, Seth drops one more little nugget, something about the goal of their work overall.
Yeah, it's brief but significant. He says it's really beneficial when these perceptions from the inner senses, the dogs, the lips, whatever, don't just stay buried in the subconscious.
They need to become available to the intellect.
Exactly. The conscious mind needs to be able to access and understand them. He promises to discuss this connection between inner senses and intellect more later.
That feels like the core of the whole project, right? Not just having weird visions, but understanding them, integrating them into your conscious awareness, making them useful.
Totally. It's about building that bridge between the intuitive, visionary parts of ourselves and the rational thinking parts. That's where the real transformation happens, according to Seth. He's basically laying groundwork for conscious reality creation.
And he ends on an encouraging note saying the peaks of achievement will get closer, the results more predictable as they practice, like train a muscle.
Okay, so we've had psychic dogs, talking lips, universal laws taking a break. Now we get to the ultimate grounding test. How does all this high-flying stuff crash into everyday apartment life?
Enter Miss Florence Callahan, their neighbor, and her rather prophetic blue divan. This is where the metaphysical meets mundane logistics in the best way possible.
It truly is. The ongoing saga of Miss Callahan becomes this amazing case study for how predictions, free will, and furniture removal all get mixed up.
Let's quickly recap her situation because this had been unfolding for months. Back in February '64, she was hospitalized, arteriosclerosis.
Right, and Seth had made some specific predictions. In March, he pinpointed April 15th as a day of crisis for her.
And was it?
Apparently so. On April 15th itself, Seth stated she would undergo significant brain damage. And Robert's notes confirm that her relatives reported she became extremely erratic around that time, throwing things, screaming, struggling. So much so that she was moved from the regular hospital to a specialized rest home.
Wow. So the internal prediction matched the external observation of her condition deteriorating.
Precisely. Then, fast forward a week to April 22nd. Seth gives the next date to watch, May 23rd. He suggests this might be another crisis, possibly even the final one.
Okay, so May 23rd is looming in the background as we get to this current session on May 13th.
Exactly. And this is where the furniture comes in. Miss Callahan's relatives want to bring her home from the rest home, which she apparently kept asking for. To do that, they need to hire a live-in nurse.
And the nurse needs somewhere to sleep. I see where this is going.
Bingo. The relatives approach Jane and Robert. They know Jane and Robert have a hideaway bed in storage. Would they be willing to swap it for Miss Callahan's blue divan currently sitting in her apartment?
The great divan swap is initiated. Right in the middle of predicted psychic crises and sensuous floating lips, you couldn't make this stuff up.
You really couldn't. And here's where Robert's fine and subtle balance of reactions, or maybe lack thereof, becomes critical.
How so?
Well, Jane, Ruburt, actually liked the blue divan. She was inclined to keep it, put it in their own living room.
Okay.
But Robert, not so much. He felt it would make their place too crowded. His note says he realized later he was not keen about keeping it. Just not keen. A subtle internal feeling.
Just a personal preference about space and aesthetics. Pretty normal.
Totally normal. But that subtle lack of enthusiasm seems to have been the deciding factor. Jane, likely picking up on his feeling even if it wasn't strongly expressed, ended up offering the divan not to themselves but to their neighbor across the hall, Leonard Yods, a schoolteacher who apparently needed a couch.
So Robert's quiet feeling about overcrowding rerouted the destiny of the prophetic blue divan.
It seems so. The universe might be scheduling brain crises, but Robert's feelings about interior decorating still influence the physical outcome.
That's hilarious and kind of profound all at once. So the swap happens.
The agreement happens on Thursday, May 14th. But you know how moving furniture goes? Getting Leonard's old couch out first, then moving the blue divan into his place. That whole logistical dance took until Monday, May 18th.
The divine drama had to wait for the moving schedule. Love it.
But here's the twist regarding the prediction. While all this sofa shuffling is being arranged, what happens with Miss Callahan?
Don't tell me she came home.
She did. Her relatives brought her and the nurse home from the rest home on Saturday afternoon, May 16th.
May 16th. But the predicted crisis date was May 23rd. She came home a full week earlier.
Exactly. And Robert notes that when she arrived home, she actually appeared much improved compared to her condition when she was moved to the rest home.
So the prediction timeline seems off, or maybe bringing her home averted the predicted crisis. Or maybe the crisis was internal and didn't manifest externally that time.
It's ambiguous, isn't it? But the sequence is undeniable. Prediction, furniture dilemma, driven by Robert's subtle feelings, logistical delays, and then the person at the center of the prediction arrives home early, seemingly better.
The contrast is just perfect. Predicting potential brain damage versus the mental energy spent deciding if a blue sofa clashes with your decor.
And yet, they're completely linked. Robert reflected on this later. He saw how his own unexpressed preference, his feeling about space, directly influenced the physical reality where the divan went, who got it, which then indirectly ties into the whole situation surrounding Miss Callahan's return.
If he'd been enthusiastic, they might have kept the couch. Leonard wouldn't have gotten it. Maybe the timing of the nurse moving in or Miss Callahan coming home would have been different.
It's impossible to know for sure, but it highlights that core Seth concept. Our inner state, even subtle feelings about seemingly mundane things, constantly shapes the events around us. Every thought, every quiet preference ripples outwards.
So the state of your living room furniture can genuinely intersect with life and death predictions. That's quite the takeaway.
So that was session 53. Short, strange, and surprisingly packed. From psychic dogs to floating lips to sofas determining destinies.
It really shows how you can squeeze profound insights, or at least profoundly weird ones, into the briefest moments surrounded by completely ordinary life stuff.
We definitely saw the importance Seth placed on meticulous records, understanding those inner glimpses,
Mhm.
and the absolute necessity of ethical boundaries in mediumship, that trust between Seth and Jane.
And that great reminder that sometimes even universal laws have to pause for human needs, for physical recovery. Plus, the constant interplay between the really big questions and, well, family drama and apartment politics.
And maybe the biggest takeaway is seeing just how deeply intertwined the profound and the mundane really are. A predicted life crisis and the logistics of moving a sofa aren't separate tracks. They're part of the same intricate pattern.
It really drives home the idea that reality is this constantly co-created tapestry.
Absolutely. And if you want to explore more of these intricate patterns, we really do encourage you to check out the source material, the Seth Material books, published by New Awareness Network.
You can find the complete sessions and much more on their website and bookstore at sethcenter.com/, the early dash sessions. It's dense stuff, but endlessly fascinating.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on, connecting back to Robert's experience.
Seth told Robert his parental problem required that fine and subtle balance of reactions. And we saw how Robert's subtle lack of enthusiasm, his quiet aesthetic preference, directly influenced the physical fate of Miss Callahan's blue divan, potentially impacting the whole situation around her return.
So here's the question for you to consider. How often do your seemingly small, maybe even unexpressed emotional reactions about mundane things, objects, minor annoyances, a piece of furniture, how often do those subtle inner states secretly rearrange the physical reality around you?
How often are we subtly influencing the course of events, the destiny of things, maybe even people, without ever consciously intending to, just through our quiet feelings about everyday stuff?
Something to think about next time you're deciding whether to keep that old lamp, perhaps.
Yeah.
What reality might you be subtly shifting?